Stage 5 restrictions. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein, probably add some schnapps to your coffee this morning or this afternoon or this night when you're watching, because we'd have a look at this article discussing the potential for Stage 5 lockdowns. Now, this was mentioned during Andrew's briefing about the curfew and other requirements that are going to be put in place for the Stage 4 lockdowns, how it's affecting business so significantly. Hinted at. What would a Stage 5 be? What other restrictions could you put in place in Melbourne now? You pretty much have people under house arrest. Do you mean people can't even leave their homes without getting fined? I suspect it would simply increase the police powers. The powers of the PSO marching up and down the street. Maybe more military deployed to keep people contained. If you look at the mortality figures, and I know this is going to sound harsh, but most of the people who are dropping off are in aged care, everyone. When you get into aged care, you go downhill real quick. A lot of people are at the end of their life there when they're heading in. They know they're not going to come out. You're warned. You're warned, because my father went in there, you're warned that they could die at any time. And I saw it. He deteriorated. It was sad. It's part of life. Do you think these people who are in this situation in aged care, do you think they would want the burden of maybe a few months extra destroying the economic opportunities, the future of entire generation? I don't think people are that selfish. What do you think, everyone? Do you think this will be remembered as a bold move by glorious leader to protect people? Or will it be seen by a foolish case of global hysteria, driving drastic interventions into our lives and cementing frustration and actually waking people up to the powers that our leaders have given themselves? One can hope. One can hope. So let's have a look at this. Is there a Stage 5? What happens if Melbourne's Stage 4 lockdown doesn't work? Well, they just do it again and again and again, isn't that? If something doesn't work, just do the same thing over and over again, and then it'll work eventually. Didn't Einstein say that's the measure of a genius? Just repeating the same stupid mistake again? I'm sure of it. Melbourne residents are already living under some of the strictest restrictions in the world, but things could get tougher if the Stage 4 lockdown doesn't work. Victorian authorities have imposed some of the toughest restrictions in the world on residents living in Melbourne, but an expert has warned worse could be in store if the current Stage 4 restrictions don't work. In releasing a list of industries that would be forced to close, Premier Daniel Andrews caused confusion yesterday when he referred to the possibility of a Stage 5 restriction. And this article was written a couple of days ago. On Sunday, Mr. Andrews announced Stage 4 restrictions in Melbourne that prohibit people from leaving their homes unless it's for 1 hour of exercise a day. One person in the household is allowed to do the grocery shopping. Retail, manufacturing and administration businesses will be forced to close, while supermarkets, grocery stores, bottle shops and pharmacies are among the businesses allowed to be kept open. Mr. Andrews said if the pandemic restrictions get infections under control, then they would not have to countenance further action. The damage, which would be altogether well, it will be in another category. It would go even beyond this because it wouldn't just be changing how the economy works, it would be very much changing the way we live our lives even further, he told reporters. The economy isn't working, you've destroyed it. You've destroyed it. You've put your citizens under house arrest. And the real scary thing about all of this is I bet you he'll get back in. I bet you he will get back in. I bet you people will love living like this. How many people do you talk to? We have to do it for the greater good. For the greater good. No mention of the incompetence that led to this method. Reporters noted that the Premier's media release mentioned Stage 5, but when he was asked to explain this, he said the reason Stage 5 is mentioned is because there is no Stage 5. It doesn't work. So he's got nothing else up his sleeve. It's just going to be more punitive fines. They'll just keep upping the fines. They'll start arresting people. Otherwise, we will have to develop a set of rules that will even further limit people's movement. I don't want to get to a situation we've got to take those steps. Well, what steps are you taking to improve our medical capacity to deal with this? That's what I want to know. Where's the justification for these type of things? You know, where's that? And I'll bring up a video here that was sent to me by John Adams, and let's just have a look at this here. I'll just put it in this player here because I haven't brought it in properly. Let's make sure you can hear it.
My question is also to the Minister for Health and Coordination of Health and Human Services in COVID. And Minister, the opposition has, on behalf of the Victorian community, sought access to background documents and working papers and the scientific papers that have informed each and every one of the health orders that has been made in the recent period since March.
That seems like a very reasonable question, doesn't it? That information, you'd hope, would be publicly available, not hidden, not a cabinet-secure document. I really would like more transparency from our political leaders. We can't have that, though. You've got to keep the plebs obsessed about housing. Housing, housing, housing. Shut up and take your free money.
And your department has refused to provide that information. In addition, that has now become subject to an FOI series and is now at VCAT. So I ask, what do you have to hide, or what do you have to cover up that would be made evident in these documents?
I'd bet a carton that it's gross incompetence. What do you think, guys? Gross incompetence? That's the fail-safe of most states. I mean, how many bureaucrats have stuffed up and just hide everything?
Minister.
I thank the member. I'll be providing him with a written response to his question by tomorrow.
Mr. Davis on a supplementary.
President, that is an appalling response by the Minister. An appalling contempt of the Parliament, contempt of the community. This is a very serious matter. It's a matter that is impacting right across our whole community. And Minister, you need to understand that this is something that you are responsible for, and you need to answer to this Parliament. I ask you... I have...
Mr. Davis has got the floor.
I ask very simply today, on behalf of those people who have lost loved ones, on behalf of those who have lost their businesses, will you today give a commitment to release that background information, the scientific working papers, all of the information which has been relied for those health orders?
Seems like a very reasonable request. You'd hope that it would be in the public domain, wouldn't you?
The community has a right to see that information. It has a right to make its judgments about it. So I'm asking you today to reverse your position and to give a commitment today to release it.
Minister.
Refer the member to my previous response.
It's a tough job being a politician. Really is.
Mr. Rich Phillips on a point of order.
Mr. President, my point of order goes to the nature of the responses the Minister for Health has been providing to all questions in question time today. The subject matter of Ms Crozier's questions, Mr Davis's questions, Mr Hayes' questions are not esoteric matters. They are matters which are absolutely current and contemporary, and which the Minister is deeply involved in and has been deeply involved in for months. The provision in standing orders which allows a Minister to take a question on notice is put in place for those matters which a Minister might handle on behalf of another Minister in another chamber, for those matters which are not contemporary, up-to-date, complex technical matters, data as Ms Crozier mentions. The matters which the Minister for Health has been asked about today are all contemporary matters that she is heavily involved in on a day-to-day basis and has been for months. So her decision not to provide answers in the chamber today, when she clearly has the capacity to do so, is nothing more than a contempt of this chamber, and I would ask that you direct her to provide verbal answers when quite clearly you know and every other member of this chamber knows she is involved in these matters, deeply involved in these matters, contemporary matters, and she has the capacity to give verbal answers today.
Yeah, that's a good point. Couldn't she say, yes, we'll release the information? No problem. We've already planned to do it? You'd hope so. You'd hope such a level of transparency would just be given, would just be expected. But nah, it's not. I mean, it makes you wonder what contempt some of these politicians hold the average pleb in. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Thank you.
President, I remind the House that this is a provision to the standing orders about as far as a minister being able to supply a written response if requested by yourself or if the minister offers it, is a provision that was put in by the opposition into the standing orders. So I don't think the members of the opposition can have it both ways. They've implemented this into the standing orders. It's part of the standing orders, and the minister has every right to respond in a way that she will give a written response to a member for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Lean. Well, thank you, Mr. Rich. Mr. Davis, on the same.
Whilst a minister may technically respond with a detailed response the next day under the orders, or 2 days if it's for a different minister, that is certainly not the intention or practice, President, of this House. The intention is that ministers be held accountable, and ministers, these are not technical matters on which the minister does not know some background detail which she would seek. This is an attempt to obfuscate, to block, to cover up her failure, to cover up her incompetence. I ask you to rule that she is willfully and deliberately blocking the release of these documents, this background information, all of the material that she has been asked for today, and that she is not behaving in a way that is becoming of a minister.
Thank you. Look, the point of order been by Mr. Rich Phillips. Unfortunately, Mr. Phillips, according to standing order, I cannot direct the minister to give an answer. My job is, in the end, is to make sure that the minister provide an answer to your question, and she has already committed to this. So there's nothing anymore I can do.
So there we have it, guys. There we have it. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that information should be publicly available? Should it just be put out there? You think it would be released once they implement these draconian restrictions on people's freedoms? They're treating people like idiots. They really are. They're not going, okay, we're implementing this based on this information. Here you go. You can download and see the research. You find that often when you work in government. I've noticed how little academic rigor there was in a lot of their justifications and positions. It was actually quite surprising. It was quite surprising because I'd come from a university environment, going straight to working for government. I did it for a stint. It was shocking. Just shocking. Okay, so back to this. We're not thinking about a stage 5, he said. We're thinking about a successful stage 4. We know it can work. How? Where's the information? Have you released it? But it does require, and this is what we're talking about a stage 5, it requires everyone's cooperation. You're never going to get that. Then you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. Why don't you put better restrictions on the aged care? Better monitoring of the staff that are working there. Support that. Lock that down. A reporter asked why was it mentioned. Well, it's mentioned because it's saying that the alternative is inconceivable. Well, people were saying that now. Melbourne University epidemiologist Professor Tony Blakely told News.com he didn't think there was a stage 5, at least not that he knew of, but he did think authorities could further tweak restrictions. So, further tightening includes closing all construction, further narrowing the definition of essential workers, closing bottle shops, shutting bakeries, all takeaways shut, just shutting every bloody thing, roadblocks at all exits from metropolitan Melbourne. Random roadblocks between suburbs, shut down all taxis with only skeletal public transport available, compulsory mask wearing in homes. In homes? Why? Those masks are only going to reduce your chance of what they're getting you to wear, to reduce your chance of giving it to someone else if you're symptomatic. But Professor Blakely said he didn't think measures such as forcing people to wear masks in their home would be likely, even though it would probably help bring down infections. These measures would provide marginal gains and may see the rates come down a few percentage rates faster, though it's unclear as I haven't modelled it yet. Why are we looking at the cases? Is the cases relevant or is the mortality relevant? That's the question. These are the only places left to go, and I don't think it'll be a huge impact. Professor Blakely said it wasn't apparent the Premier was referring to this in his comments, but he may have been pointing to tougher shopping and stay-at-home restrictions. So enforcement crucial to Stage 4. He believes that the current Stage 4 restrictions will work to bring cases down, but enforcement of the rules is crucial. But here we go. What happens when the cases come down and then you get another outbreak? And we're in the same mess again. I'm confident we saw it work in Spain, Italy, and the UK. Well, Spain's just had a flare-up, hasn't it? And it will work as long as we've got enforcement. If there are breaches, then there's a different matter. That's a different matter. It's simply mathematics to it. He believes the next question is, how long does Melbourne have to be in Stage 4 lockdown in order to achieve the goal of no community transmission? Is that even possible? Is that even possible? It's a virus. You can't control it. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said Australia is aiming for no community transmission, which is when there are no new cases without a known source identified for 28 days. At this stage, it's unclear whether Victoria will still be able to achieve this, but Professor Blakely believes experts will have a better idea in about 3 weeks when the impact of the Stage 4 restrictions is known and can be modelled. Melbourne's restrictions are now among the most strictest in the world, but Professor Blakely said it was crucial that residents follow the rules, as otherwise this could see lockdowns expanded in the future. Do this well, don't mock them out. For anyone breaking the rules, there should be warnings for the first week and then a full penalty rate after. A week ago, there were so many examples of people not being at home when they should be in isolation. So the virus is out. He said it was human nature for people to believe they wouldn't be the ones to get sick, or you expect to be able to overcome it. Maybe people want to get it done with. It's a very common psychology. And for those who have had the virus, once their symptoms are gone, they may think, why should I stay in isolation for another 10 days? But we know that it can still be you can still be transmitting the virus even if you don't have symptoms. Yes, it's a pain, but given where we are, it's utterly critical that everyone abides by the rules. He said this applies equally for businesses that may naturally look for loopholes in rules. The idea is for looking for loopholes that has to go to individual business. So the availability of JobKeeper and JobSeeker and other pandemic payments were enough to help people get through. Well, there we go, guys. So, potential for drastic new lockdowns, essentially turning, any step forward would be greater police state, and we can see here that the calls for the government to release this information on the basis of all the decisions being made, well, it's not really an encouraging response. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions. If you're in Victoria, guys, stiff upper lip, put up with it. You've got to. Don't go getting arrested. Don't go getting thousands of dollars of fines, because that's what they'll do. They'll fine you and they'll plaster you all over the media. Take care. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. If you want to support the channel, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.